UFC 290 just recently wrapped up, and I'm going to recap the entire card. Make sure you guys smash that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. We're going to start it off with the main event of the evening, where Alexandre Volkanovski put on a beatdown, essentially, of Yair Rodriguez. This fight was not in any sense really close. There was a couple moments for Yair Rodriguez, really in the final round, where he got finished. He started landing on Volk, and it kind of, shifted Volkanovski into turbo. He lands a dynamite right hook. Yair's hurt. Rodriguez honestly showed me that he's still, if put on his back by somebody who's strong on top, very susceptible to damage. Volkanovski starts ripping some ground and pound. Yair's pretty much finished. Thankfully, the ref jumps in and stops it. Now, in the early rounds, what showed Volkanovski's game? What really stood out? What really, to me, stood out? He looks like mini Makhachev. Obviously, I think his wrestling's pretty on point. Volkanovski is not normally going out there and showcasing his strong wrestling skills and his top control. He likes to strike, and he's a very adept striker. He's high level on the feet. It's wow, though, how he bullied Yair on the floor. I feel like Volkanovski's top game is pretty high level. I'd say, honestly, I don't want to compare him to Team Dagestan, but he is, though. He is. I got to compare him to that. I mean, he beat up Makhachev from top. Anybody that can get on top of Islam Makhachev and beat him up with ground and pound strikes is a savage on the mat. Volkanovski can do it all. He is, I think, at featherweight, not only GOAT status, but dominant status. I imagine Volkanovski beating everybody in their primes. Obviously, the Conor McGregor fight would have probably been the most interesting, because if you look at Yair Rodriguez's striking successes in this fight, and you think about a prime Conor McGregor's striking style, he would be the only guy where Volkanovski, I think, would be significantly threatened on the feet. But the way Volkanovski put it on Yair Rodriguez with the grappling, I imagine if he did fight Conor McGregor, he could take him down, and he can beat him up from top. Remember Chad Mendes beating up Conor a little bit from top position in their fight? I can see Volkanovski beating him up on the floor. So to me, Volkanovski is #1 featherweight ever, and on his way to all-time MMA GOAT status. It's like a modern-day George St. Pierre. The way he beat Yair Rodriguez was so awesome. I mean, I knew he was going to win the fight, right? Everybody essentially picked him for the most part. But it was more about how was he going to do it. He ran through Yair, and only a couple of moments for Yair. And on the feet, Yair is so tricky. His kicking skill set is crazy. It's inhumane. Most guys cannot jump up and kick and land with that type of speed. Even Volkanovski after the fight said to Yair, I was worried. I brought in training partners. I was nervous for your style. You're a very dangerous fighter. He said it to Rogan right after. Volkanovski realized that he had a foe who had a significant threat that nobody else he had ever faced had, and it was the kicking game. Obviously, how to negate great kicks? Well, take the opponent to the floor, and even when they did strike, though, don't fucking sleep on Volkanovski's stand-up. I mean, he finishes the fight with his strikes, the big right hand, and then he gets a stoppage win. Volkanovski is tremendous. I feel like he's going to run through the whole division, and I know Ilia Topuria is a potential next opponent. I think that's a really interesting fight, and I'm probably going to throw up an early prediction in reaction to the potential fight. I guess it will be a hypothetical prediction and hypothetical reaction to what might be. It seems like the UFC is pushing that direction because, they didn't mention much about the Islam Makhachev rematch. Yair, he's getting sent back a little bit, but he's still in a good spot. I could see him fighting the likes of an Arnold Allen. He's dangerous as they come. It's just Volkanovski's the GOAT. He's the guy. Volk beats Max Holloway 3 times. You know the dude was next level doing that feat, beating the second best featherweight ever. So yeah, Volkanovski, off the charts performance, super dominant. To me, locked in at the top now. I don't think anybody beats him at 45. At 55 is where he could find challenges. Imagine him and Oliveira, or him and Poirier or Gaethje, him and Makhachev too. Those matchups really intrigue me. I think he could potentially win at least 3 out of those 4, really. Makhachev is the guy that I feel is that hard matchup stylistically. It's a guy that could still beat him by decision again. But that's the fight that I do want to see eventually, probably 2024 for Volkanovski versus Makhachev too, because I think Makhachev's going to end up probably fighting Oliveira again. It seems like they're going to go the route of that rematch, hearing about Volkanovski's arm needing surgery. I don't think, even though he's saying he'll be ready by the end of the year, what do we got? July now. So it's August, September, October, November, December. We got 5 months. If he gets surgery in the next 2 weeks, maybe recovers, does he have enough time for a 10-week camp? I don't know. Very iffy. Very iffy. But hey, Volkanovski, A1 performance. A1 performance. Let's bring it to the co-main event. Pantoja and Brandon Moreno put on a classic. It was one of the best fights I'd seen in a while. I mean, it was just one of those fights that you'll remember. Back and forth, scrambles, great striking exchanges. It's kind of what you get from the low weight classes. Flyweight brings that heat. And Pantoja beat Moreno for a third time now. He just has Moreno's number. You know what? Brandon Moreno looked really nasty in the fight. Still in the first round, he gets dropped. It seems like Moreno looks more skilled than Pantoja in the striking, but still Pantoja lands the crisp shots. He still hurts him with the hook. Put him down. He dropped him in the first round. Moreno's a real good wrestler. Pantoja's able to take him down. Pantoja gets back control. Really, Pantoja deserved the decision at the end of it. I'm not going to complain about it. I mean, he, regardless of people saying, oh, there's no damage, he did finish with the body triangle. He had the back position locked up. Alexandre Pantoja and Brandon Moreno in a weird spot, though. Because I think of the weight class, and obviously Brandon Royval is right in the mix. Pantoja destroyed him. Brandon Moreno rematch, quadrilogy, part 2 for Moreno. When he's 3 down against Alexandre Pantoja, such a weird situation, because I would be down to watch them fight again as how close this one was. I don't think this is the last time they're going to end up fighting. So then let's look at more. Amir Albazi's in the mix, but Amir Albazi barely beat Kai Kara-France. I think it was a controversial decision, but maybe he's the most sensible next challenger because at least he would be new blood for Pantoja. Him having a dominant win over Royval, I'd expect him to be a minus 300 favorite or more. I mean, I think Pantoja earned more respect from me now. Like the way that he won, any doubts I had about him, I'm like, all right, Pantoja really is extremely good. I worried about his gas tank. I was like, I don't know. I thought he was, a bit susceptible to getting hurt on the feet. His chin's off the charts. Pantoja's a monster. And he beats Brandon Moreno in a really competitive fight that I'd be down to watch again. I will say it. I said it a few times. I'll say it again. Pantoja versus Amir Albazi, at least it's a new fight. Because the Royval fight, I don't think sells that well. Quadrilogy with Moreno could be cool. Pantoja obviously less of a name than Brandon Moreno at this point, regardless of his 3 wins over him. A 4th fight immediately after a split decision. We are in a really weird spot at flyweight, but regardless, Alexandre Pantoja is a tremendous fighter that I am now holding in higher regard than ever. I knew he was real good, but I thought that Moreno had the goods for him. I wish we could have seen Pantoja, Davison Figueiredo. Prime Figgy versus Pantoja, that's a dope fight. Minel Kopp on the come up. Pantoja already beat him. He's just that guy. But yeah, I want new blood. I like the Albazi fight more for Pantoja. It was a great win. I think he deserved it on the judges' scorecards. It was a pretty back and forth fight. Some great striking exchanges. Both guys landing big shots. Little bit better and surprising takedown offense for Pantoja over Moreno, who I consider a pretty good wrestler. So Alexandre Pantoja, A1 performance. It was great. Fight before that was a massive upset. Dricus du Plessis knocked out Robert Whittaker. First round was close, and then Dricus ends up landing a throw, finishing on top, and ripping some ground and pound on Rob Whittaker. Second round, he ends up dropping Whittaker, and this blew my mind. Whittaker then is getting pushed back against the cage. He turtles up, falls over, and, broke. Dricus du Plessis broke Robert Whittaker. We never think Whittaker has any bit of wilt in him. At least I don't. I don't think many people do. But the way Dricus was able to put him down like that, it was one of the most impressive performances to me. I mean, Dricus looked better than before. His gas tank looked better. His striking looked tighter. His physique looked more powerful and menacing. Dricus is one of those freaks right now in the UFC. And then right after the fight, him and Israel Adesanya have a very profanity-type fueled, I guess, racial slur. I don't know what the hell you'd call it, with Ngannou dropping some profanity on him that I guess was pretty much unnecessary. I think that Adesanya, did I say Ngannou? If I said Ngannou, my mistake. I think Adesanya could have been more cerebral with it. Did seem like he had some drinks. Was very emotional, though. I could see Israel Adesanya was pissed off when he was looking at Dricus du Plessis. You could sense the tension, and this is a huge fight now. Du Plessis' performance over Robert Whittaker just jumped his stock tremendously because we had doubts about him. Everybody did. It's like, Dricus, he's too hittable. Dricus, he's too wild. I don't know, man. Maybe he really is that guy at this point. And Adesanya now gets a new challenge. Somebody that brings the excitement, being both Africans in the argument of who's the real African. Adesanya is so hell-bent on saying Dricus is not a real African. And, you know, if you do a DNA test, it'll say he's from Europe and shit like that. It's so odd how that's such a massive thing. It's obviously because Dricus said he's the true African champ if he wins the belt. I mean, he's referring to he is African because he lives in Africa. So he will represent the continent as someone who lives there, trains there, and is Africa, even though Adesanya, obviously from African lineage. I guess it's just a really big deal to them, but really in the grand scheme, I mean, you know, South Africa is being represented by du Plessis. Nigeria's being represented by Adesanya. You know, I guess they're kind of just lumping the whole continent together. Whatever. Hey, Dricus du Plessis and Israel Adesanya is a dope fight. Du Plessis surprised the fuck out of me. I did not think he would knock out Robert Whittaker. No way. I don't think anybody thought he would knock out Rob Whittaker. Says I had one friend that put it on knockout, Dricus du Plessis. I'm like, what type of fucking drunk prop bet is that? And then boom, it hits. You're a sick fuck. Good call, man. Good call. That's crazy. Dricus du Plessis did it. Knocked out Robert Whittaker. Romero couldn't put his lights out, hitting him with everything. I guess Wonderboy did knock him out, and Izzy knocked him out once. Du Plessis just happened to be that dude. He found the chink in the armor, that southpaw stance. Du Plessis found the chink in the armor. He's a very cerebral fighter, man. We look at him as a wild fighter, a dog-tough fighter, someone that comes and throws heavy, an aggressive fighter. But he's an intelligent fighter. He studies his opponents. And I got to give Du Plessis more credit. And I'm very intrigued now by him and Israel Adesanya. So fuck yes to that. For Robert Whittaker, you're beating everybody else but losing here. I don't know. It didn't look like he wanted to be in there. I don't feel crazy about a quick rebooking for Rob. Maybe if I had to throw one name, it could be a Sean Strickland fight. They haven't faced off yet. But Strickland coming off of a performance where he took minimal damage and Rob Whittaker getting chinned, I'd assume Strickland will want to turn around quicker. I think Du Plessis versus Israel Adesanya for the world title is what's next. I wish it was in Africa, but it's going to be in Australia, and I'm hype as hell for it. Oh, man, this fight was great. Dan Hooker versus Jalin Turner. Dan Hooker deserved the win, 29-28, and I'm glad they got the right guy winning. Jalin Turner early looked faster than Dan Hooker, but, dude, Dan Hooker is, you know, he's saying he's 2.0. I mean, he looks relentless as ever. He was landing big strikes on Jalin Turner. Turner fatigued faster than Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker's just dog tough. I mean, Turner's very quick and dangerous, and I think Turner did win the first round, but the second and third were Dan Hooker's. I mean, Jalin Turner kicked Dan Hooker right in the face, and Hooker somehow continued and didn't go down. I mean, barely even got wobbled. Dan Hooker's got a chin on him, man. And then to be in there landing strikes, hurting Jalin Turner, causing him to wilt, and then at the end of the second round, Dan Hooker's got a full rear naked choke in. That was sick. Then you look at round 3. They're scrapping. It's a good fight. But, dude, Dan Hooker's breaking Jalin Turner, beating him up on the feet. At one point, Jalin Turner is turtling up and going down. Dan Hooker jumps on him. Doesn't get the finish. Ends up taking full guard. Finishing the fight, though, standing because Jalin Turner eventually got up and then Dan Hooker was mostly moving away from him. But the right guy won the fight for sure. It's interesting because Jalin Turner was like that prospect with all the rub. Everybody was hype about him. But if you really look at it now, taking a loss to Hooker, and he missed weight, taking a loss last time in a very competitive fight against Mateusz Gamrot, it does jump Hooker's stock. Because Hooker showed Turner's human. Gamrot, I still think, would be like a hell matchup for Hooker. I'm not saying I want to see that fight. And I'll tell you this, Paddy Pimblett, I was originally saying I think Dan Hooker could be a good fight for Paddy Pimblett. Bro, I think Dan Hooker would beat up Paddy. Dan's pretty good still. Grapplers that are really strong with their takedowns can give him some difficulties. But when he fights guys that like to strike or people that aren't exceptional in the grappling, like if they gave him Grant Dawson, that's a hard matchup. I think he loses that type of fight. If he can stay on his feet, he'll fuck him up. But I think it probably hits the floor. When you give him strikers, though, expect treats with Dan Hooker. So keep giving him strikers, UFC. We got blonde. We got leg tattoos. We got Dan Hooker 2.0, and I'm a big fan of it. Jalin Turner, unfortunately, sent back a while, man. Starting off the main card, we had Bo Nickal versus Val Woodburn. You're expecting Bo Nickal just to wrestle. I mean, that's what I was expecting. I think that's what everybody was kind of expecting. Just, a Bo Nickal, take down Woodburn, strangle him in some fashion. Instead, he's unable to land takedowns because Woodburn showed a little bit of defense, being 5'8" and jacked. It kind of helps. Bo Nickal's like, let's fucking strike. He kind of got touched once, and then he chins Val Woodburn. Absolutely annihilated him in the striking. His boxing looks smooth and powerful as fuck. I did think potentially the ref could have let it go for another second, but Woodburn would have just got obliterated with ground and pound. So better off they stop it a little bit early for a guy coming in on short notice who's probably not to the skill set, maybe even to be in the UFC. Regardless of that, Bo Nickal treats his opponents in the way he beats them exactly as he should for somebody who's being built as a future UFC champion / contender. He sleep Woodburn in 38 seconds. He's nasty as they come. Great wrestling. Dangerous as fuck stand-up. Just a proven winner. Bo Nickal is 5-0. I'd like to see him get a big fight. I think that he's climbing up a bit here. I don't think you rebook him versus the Tresean Gores of the world. I think you got to step him up a little bit. I think it's time we can look at moving Bo Nickal a notch upwards. I'm not saying give him a top 15 guy yet. When I think about guys outside of the top 15, we got a guy who just recently won in like a Nursultan Rizibov. If they're interested in exploring, that's a really difficult option. But can you imagine they gave him Rizibov, a guy with the most fights versus only 5? Nah, don't give him him. The veteran experience is dangerous. I don't know, an Abdul Razak Al Hassan fight. That's kind of cool. Maybe that. I don't have an exact opponent. It's hard to say with these unranked guys who they could face off against. But right now, Bo Nickal looks like he's a top 20 at worst, top 25, I'll say, with the way that he beat Woodburn, because he's beating guys that he should beat in extremely impressive fashion. And that's what I love to see, is when guys, it's not like he's going out there and beating Woodburn on a 30-27 grind-heavy decision. He's destroying him. And he's done that to everyone. So, Bo Nickal's the real deal. Closing out the prelims, we had a 39-second knockout after the 38-second was right before. Robbie Lawler at 41. He's 15-10 to end his UFC run after getting inducted in the Hall of Fame. He sleeps Niko Price very quickly with huge punches in the clinch. Drops Niko, and Niko's pretty much a dead man. It was awesome. Robbie Lawler then after the fight did an interview with Rogan. They pretty much did a whole career tribute. I thought that was really nice. I loved it. Unfortunate that we don't see Robbie Lawler again, but watching the, heroes of yesteryear just continue to get fucked up. I mean, look at Frankie Edgar getting brutally chinned on his way out. I mean, this is a Bellator example, but even Gegard Mousasi starting to rack up some L's over in Bellator. As these guys, Fedor, the way he got beaten up in the last one, I know it was against Bader, but still, it's like most legends, like they say, go out on their back. Robbie Lawler gets to go out with a sick win. At 41, he destroyed Niko Price and looked like prime Robbie Lawler. That is the best way to finish your career. That has been crazy long. And not only is he now 15-10 in the UFC, he goes from 29-16 to 30-16. The dude has 30 professional wins inside of the cage. That's a great way to go. Robbie Lawler's done it, man. So mad respect to Robbie. He's been around forever. He's fought everyone. And it's great to see him call it a career with his hands raised in the air. Love it for Robbie Lawler. Niko Price, thankfully, was the opponent. And damn, he took some damage. Before this one, Tatsuro, Taira, and Edgar Cháirez, I think it kind of showed Taira's still a little green, man. I'm a little bit worried about him rushing up the ranks. He was caught in a deep guillotine in the third round at the end. Taira destroyed on the ground with dominance, but at the end of the day, Cháirez was the one kind of pulling him in because he was choosing to jump guillotines when he was having some success on the feet. Bad game planning for Cháirez cost him the fight, essentially, and he couldn't get up when Taira got on top. But damn, bro, Tatsuro Taira, 23, he's such a baby right now. He's super young, but let's not overly rush him up the ranks. I think he's a really dominant guy when he gets in top position. He has decent wrestling. He has average stand-up. That stand-up concerns me because there's a lot of strong wrestlers with, decent ground skills that could potentially stop his takedowns. Even if he's better when they go to the floor, I can see guys stopping his takedowns. And then if he's forced into a striking fight, I can see him getting hurt. So Cháirez, dog tough, but the real winner, Taira, was still getting strangled at the end of the fight. He was in a mounted guillotine at the very end. Cháirez was so close. Denise Gomes, Yazmin, Jalin. This one was insane to me. Denise Gomes just came out like a bat out of hell. Rocks Jalin with an overhand punch. Follows up with more. She's down. Ground and pound coming. Fights out 20 seconds. Like 10-0 gets stopped in 20 seconds. You can't predict things like this. A sub 1 minute knockout. Sub 30-second knockout. Denise Gomes, mad respect. Savage. Pressure and power was great. Jalin just got caught cold, and she fought a dog-tough girl. Before this one, Alonzo, Menifield, and Jimmy Crute, it was looking like Jimmy Crute had the right game plan. He was controlling against the cage. He looked on his way to win. Alonzo Menifield ends up submitting him. Jimmy Crute's the grappler, known for his ground skills, and he ends up getting submitted in Darce-ish choke, some type of neck crank. It was a weird position in side control, kind of like guillotine-esque. I don't know the exact name, but Menifield strangled him. He snapped that neck up and strangled him. Jimmy Crute, he looked all right early. He was looking better than last time early. He won the first round on my scorecard, but then Menifield strangled him. So that's crazy. After the fight, too, Crute took his gloves off, but I guess his cornerman's like, no. And he ends up not retiring, which was good. I didn't want him to retire. We have here Vitor Petrino versus Marcin Prachnio. So I think Petrino still, has some work to do. But, let's talk about something. The dude is 25. And he's beating up Prachnio, bullying him on the ground. His striking is very powerful but raw. Some of the commentary said that I noticed as well is he kind of smothers his shots and then overextends and gets off balance. That forces him to engage in grappling. Something that will come with time is his range management. He's only 25, but I'll tell you where I think he's such a badass though, on the floor. When he gets on top, he's got bullying top control, super strong, one of the strongest guys I think in the UFC light heavyweight division, and he ends up getting a finish, arm triangle. He's a finisher. He's a guy that's going to go for the kill. I was very impressed by that. Regardless of Prachnio not being, to the best level opposition, Petrino's win, very good. Still green, still needs a bit of time, but he's very good. And he's a fucking powerhouse. Saaiman versus Mitchell. Cameron Saaiman. Besides a couple scrambles on the ground and a little bit of striking moments, he ended up getting on top and just beating the shit out of Terrence Mitchell, and the referee had to jump in and stop it. Terrence Mitchell was getting grounded, pounded, like it was back control position by Saaiman. Mitchell's like trying to move his legs. It was over. It was done. Good referee stoppage. Saaiman bullies him in the first round. Hopefully they don't cut Mitchell. They do him a favor and keep him around for one more after accepting this short notice fight. But damn, Cameron Saaiman's a bullying prospect. What do we learn about this fight? Not much. Terrence Mitchell was fighting in Alaska, bro. So it's not like he's taking on the highest level of opposition. Cameron Saaiman is going to beat back-end guys that aren't competing against high-level talents. He's a very, very good prospect. This fight was crazy. Jesus Aguilar throws a ducking overhand and sleeps Shannon Ross in one punch. 17 seconds in. It was what? One of the quickest knockouts, I think, in flyweight ever. Top 3, I think they said. Maybe it was better than that. Jesus Aguilar was not known for knockout power, and he absolutely annihilated Shannon Ross. And the way Shannon Ross went down, I got worried. Like, I watch a fuckload of fights. I watch every fight every week. But those type of knockouts are still scary because you got to wonder, like, yo, is this guy good? When his head flies back and smashes against the canvas, when you're fully out like that, holy shit. It was insane. His body just went completely limp. Thankfully, he got up, and he seemed all right. Seemed totally out of it, Shannon Ross. Aguilar landed the perfect overhand punch, which is probably going to send Shannon Ross outside of the UFC and potentially into retirement. For Aguilar, I mean, this jumped his stock tenfold because now he's a guy with power. A real fucking heavy-handed Jesus Aguilar. He's got power. It was a sick win. First fight of the night was Esteban Ribovics and Kemuela Kirk. Kemuela Kirk early in the fight had success with takedowns, but he didn't have the same gas tank nor dog that Ribovics had. Ribovics was really putting it on him in the second and third round. Finished the fight extremely strong. Had Kemuela Kirk looking tired, a little bit dejected, and beaten. Clear winner. Esteban Ribovics. Heavy hands, good combos, pressure for sure. Good chin. Doesn't really worry that much about getting hit because he's throwing so much heat. I mean, he's standing there and just ripping bombs. He overwhelmed Kemuela Kirk. So, great win for Esteban Ribovics in this fight here. Now, as far as the picks, the record was not tremendous. Finished out 6-7 for the night. We got a win in the main event, though, so it continues the main event win streak. Lost with Moreno over Pantoja. Lost with Whittaker over Plessis. Lost with Turner over Hooker, but ultimately I did mention Hooker's a pretty good dog attack on the weigh-in show, and I said I was including him in some parlays. So note that Hooker wasn't that bad. Turner-Hooker fight wasn't that bad for me, but still is a loss ultimately as a pick. Nickal over Woodburn was the pick. Lawler over Niko Price was the pick. That was a savage underdog. Taira over Cháirez was the pick. Good call. Dangerous fight, though. Jauregui by decision over Gomes turns out to be a one-punch knockout. That was a loss there. Jimmy Crute to beat Menifield ends up being a loss there. Petrino to beat Prachnio. We're on point here. Saaiman to beat Mitchell. We're on point here. Shannon Ross to decision. Aguilar, way off. Kirk to decision. Ribovics, not an awful call, but ultimately still a loss. So, yeah, man, the record, what do we got? 1 win here, 2 wins there, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So 6-7, the record for the night. Not great. Was disappointed that Moreno also lost, who was the close money lock. But that is part of the game, man. Sometimes you take some ups. Sometimes you take some downs. Like, it's not super close money. He was what? Minus 200-ish. I did think he was gonna pull it off against Pantoja, man. But Pantoja showed he's a monster. Better than anticipated. So great performance for him. Got to turn it up, man. Got to flip that 6-7 to fucking 9-4, 10-3. Some big numbers. That's what's coming. I'm excited for next week. The full card predictions for the Holly Holm card are going to be dropping today, really. So stay tuned for them. Make sure you smash the likes here. I hope you guys enjoyed the post-fight show. Much love to you all. Thank you for the support. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace, everybody.